Welcome back. We're finally getting the return of Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer this weekend in Seattle. Obviously, we're all going to be watching this fight for sure because if you hate him, if you like him, we're all going to be tuning in for this main event because Izzy, outside of him being a big name in the UFC, if he loses this fight, it's basically time to call it quits for sure. And so we're all going to be watching the outcome of it to see what happens for sure. So it's going to be an interesting one. I can't wait for it. I feel like every single day this fight night is going to be coming closer to this weekend. I feel like the hype is for sure is gonna be building up. I can't wait for it. So, anyways, obviously, like I said, the return of Izzy because this guy hasn't fought in over a year. It's been since the Imavov loss, he hasn't fought. It makes sense. Obviously, a KO loss of that caliber, those warrant you to take time away from the sport. Time to recover, time to reflect on your career. And he also took another year-long layoff between the Strickland and the DDP fight. So obviously, these last couple of years, Izzy has been for sure slowing down compared to when he was champ. But it's gonna be really interesting to see what type of Izzy we're gonna be getting for this main event against Pyfer. Obviously, Pyfer, this is a big fight for him as well. Big step up in name value in competition, former champ. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how each fighter is gonna look this weekend. So I can't wait for the main event. And speaking of main event, I'm not sure about the rest of the card. The rest of the card, I'm going to be honest, is kind of similar to last week's card in terms of, I would say, giving us potentially good fights. But anyways, this fight night has 14 fights, so I'm going to be speed running here and there. There's timestamps below if you want to skip through. But anyways, let's start out with the first fight of the night. We got at featherweight. We got Kangjie versus Marcio Barbosa. One of these guys is coming from the contender series, and one of them is coming from the road to UFC. Try to guess who is coming from who. Marcio Barbosa is coming from the road to UFC. No, I'm joking. He obviously is Kangjie coming from the road to UFC. He is decent. He's pretty good. I would say he's well-rounded. He has a lot of potential in the UFC. It's just this guy's facing off with Marcio Barbosa, the contender series debutant. This guy is very dangerous. This guy has a lot of potential. I would say he's well above decent. KO power, a bunch of KO wins, and he has pretty nice boxing. I would say it's not as good as Elia for sure, but the thing is, he looks very similar to Dustin Poirier. If you look at the way he fights, it's very similar to Dustin Poirier. So there's that to note of Barbosa. So there's that. And because of that, I really lean towards Barbosa winning this fight. Kangjie, like I said, said before, Chinese fighters have pretty good chins. They have that square jawline. I wish I would have, but these guys have like iron chins. It's just the skill gap, the power gap. I'm gonna go with Marcio Barbosa winning this fight by KO, and this is the second round. Give me a second round KO win for Barbosa, winning the first fight of the night. But anyways, next up we got women's flyweight bout. We got Thainara versus Brasil. This one's an interesting one. Thainara, she's 2-0 right now in the UFC. She's on a bit of a winning streak. She beat my girl Luke Bomi, which I'm a little bit salty of. She beat her, but anyways, she's now facing off with Brasil. Brasil. Do I have to go any deeper into this fight? Give me Thainara decision win. Next up, we got bantamweight bout. We got Ricky Simon versus Adrian Yanez. I'm gonna be honest, I really wasn't looking too deep into this fight, but it's kind of an even fight. It's kind of tricky fight for both fighters. Adrian Yanez for a while was on a big winning streak by KO. It's just the thing about Yanez is he's a little bit hittable, and for him to get a KO, he needs to land like a bunch of consecutive combinations for him to finally get the finish. It's not like he has like one punch power, so there's that. But Ricky Simon, I would say he has way more answers for Yanez than Yanez has for Simon. Simon, he can come in with the striking, with the mixing in with the grappling. His footwork is, I would say, is much better. Yanez is a little bit flat-footed, and I'm gonna lean towards Simon winning this fight. He has more answers for Yanez. He can definitely make this fight a little bit tricky for Yanez, just mixing in the grappling, even if he doesn't like hold down Yanez or get the submission. And so I'm gonna go with Simon decision win, I think. But anyways, next up at light heavyweight bout, we got Stirling versus Bruno Lopes. I'm a little bit frustrated on this matchup because Stirling, obviously this guy's like a light-skinned Izzy. He's associated with Izzy because he fights exactly like Izzy. So obviously that's why I call him light-skinned Izzy. But he has a lot of potential. He has like a somewhat recognizable name. I don't know about the casuals, but I would say, he has a lot of potential in the UFC as well. And they're giving him Bruno Lopes for his fourth fight in the UFC. So it's a little bit frustrating because Sterling, he should be fighting better opponents by this point. And now, he's kind of getting the Atiba Gauthier treatment, as in just fighting a bunch of cans straight on. Atiba Gauthier is fighting like his 5th can in a row right next, which is crazy. But I don't know what the heck the UFC is doing with Atiba. But anyways, Sterling, he low-key should clear the waters against Bruno Lopes. Bruno Lopes, he can make it kind of tricky with the grappling. He is a decent grappler with like the clinch work, takedowns. It's just it's now Sterling. He's pretty good. You know, he changed out of city kickboxing. Those guys had pretty good takedown defense to get back up. And so gave me now Sterling decision. I don't think he's gonna get the KO. If he's gonna get the KO against his former opponent, he for sure is not gonna get the KO against Bruno Lopes. Maybe he can. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm gonna give me now Sterling decision. Next up at women's flyweight bout, we got Casey O'Neill. Oh no, he's Australian. What's an Australian accent? Whatever. But anyways, versus Gabriela Fernandes. And so I really like this fight. I've been anticipated this fight for a long time. I've been studying each fighter ins and out. A lot of time into the film study. Give me Casey O'Neill. Anyways, next up at heavyweight, we got Marcin Tybura versus Tyrell Fortune. Marcin Tybura fighting a guy making a debut from the not from Bellator. He was a Bellator fighter, but he was in the regional scene for a little bit after getting signed. He was signed like a couple weeks ago. Marcin Tybura originally was going to fight Walter Walker, by the way. Walter Walker pulled out. I think he was like injured or something. But anyways, Tyrell Fortune now making a short notice debut against Marcin Tybura. And the thing about Bellator is Bellator is like the second best option outside of the UFC when in terms of like skill and like competition. But the thing is, it kind of takes away out of your prime once you get signed into the UFC, because you are kind of like locked down into a contract by Bellator, and so you get like a lot of guys from like, let's say, Michael Chandler or like Patchy Mix or like Pitbull, like they get to sign to the UFC, but like a bit late into the UFC, you know, like MVP, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, enter the UFC pretty late into their careers, and that's the same situation for Tyrell Fortune. Tyrell Fortune is not bad, but I don't think he's that good in general, and he's now up there in age. Marcin Tybura is also up there in age, but he's still pretty decent, still UFC ranked caliber. I do think he's gonna win this fight against this guy making their debut. Beat him in the striking, beat him in the grappling. Give me Marcin Tybura second round KO. I can feel like the first one's gonna be a little bit like slow, and you're gonna be like looking at each other, you know, all fat and shit. But like, I feel like Marcin Tybura is gonna win by second round KO, drop him, bring in the heat. Next up at lightweight, we got Chase Hooper versus Lance Gibson Jr. This one's an interesting matchup because both of these guys lost to, you can say, primarily strikers. Alex Fernandez, Bobby Green. This guy lost his debut to Bobby Green. So I would say this is a pretty decent matchup. Both of these guys are mainly grapplers. Chase Hooper is like a BJJ player, and Lance Gibson Jr. is more like a wrestler. And what we've seen before, we always see the BJJ player beats the wrestler. The wrestler can take down his opponent. He can pin them down. But the grappler, the BJJ player gets a submission on bottom. It's wraps. We've seen that a couple times already here and there. BJJ players beat wrestlers in terms of MMA. Like, look at Charles Rivera versus Gamrot. Just for like simply having that submission threat, it's like it legit counters a lot what wrestlers do. And so I'm gonna lean towards Chase Hooper. I think he's pretty good in general, much better than Lance Gibson Jr. as a fighter. But I'm gonna go with Chase Hooper winning by submission first round. I feel kind of bad for Lance Gibson Jr. You know, there's gonna be like 2 L's in a row if he does lose this fight. But I do like him. It's just, come on, like, I don't know. But I'm gonna go with Chase Hooper winning by first round submission. Anyways, at lightweight bout, we got Ignacio Bahamondes versus Taufik Musayev. Ignacio Bahamondes, you know, lost his last fight against Rafa Fiziev. I would say this fight is kind of similar to the last matchup. Both of these guys are coming off L's. Taufik lost his debut fight against Mediatek Orbai. But anyways, Ignacio Bahamondes, he's pretty big for the lightweight. You know, 6'3", rangy, 75-inch reach. You know, that's pretty crazy. And so he was big, but he did lose his last fight against Rafa Fiziev, who's pretty small for a lightweight. But Fiziev had a pretty good game plan. Just, you know, target the body in and out blitzes. And Ignacio Bahamondes with Loki was just spamming, you know, spinning wheel kicks, which is kind of dumb. But anyways, if he comes into with a smart game plan this time around, he easily wins this fight. I'm gonna be honest. Taufik Musayev, kind of similar situation as the Tyrell Fortune guy. He got signed to the UFC kind of late in his career. He's up there in age. He's like 35, I think, or 36. And so, you know, he lost his debut. And I would say his striking is a little bit low output. And if you're low output in front of a bigger opponent, that's kind of not a good thing. You're going to get picked apart by range. And also the grappling. His grappling is, let's just put it, not dangerous. Bahamondes has some pretty good submissions here and there. I'm going to lean towards Bahamondes for sure. And the striking and the grappling, his frame, and he's in his prime. So I'll give me Ignacio Bahamondes first round submission. Actually, I feel like this could probably go to like a decision, but you know, give me submission third round. Give me third round submission. Anyways, first fight of the main card, we got Terrence McKinney versus Cal Nelson at lightweight. This is basically obviously your traditional Cal McKinney fight where it's just a coin flip who wins in the first round. and by stoppage. Give me McKinney. The thing about Kyle Nelson, he's a little bit. I don't know. I don't really trust him in getting a KO win or a submission over McKinney. He is a little bit like how would I say? I would say he's not a consistent finisher, and he's not that good to begin with. He could beat McKinney. Listen, this is a 50-50 coin flip, but I'm gonna lean towards McKinney winning. I see he has more finishing potential. So give me Terrence McKinney first round KO, not submission. Give me a KO. I feel like a KO is coming. But anyways, middleweight bout. This fight right here should have been the co-main. Mansoor Abdul-Malik versus Yusri Bagori. We got someone making who's undefeated. They're 4-0 in the UFC versus Yusri Bagori, who won his debut fight and who was a former Israel Adesanya opponent at Glory. He lost to Israel. He beat Alex Pereira. I think he's like 1-1 with Alex Pereira. But this dude, this fight should have been co-main in my opinion. I'm gonna be honest, but either way, Mansoor Abdul-Malik, this guy is undefeated, but undefeated against cans. This dude, his last two opponents were Antonio Tricoli and Cody Brundage, and he lost a couple rounds off like Cody Brundage. I think he lost like a 1 or 2 rounds. No, he lost like a round against Cody Brundage, but he lost like a couple rounds against Klein and Antonio Rovers. Like these guys are not good at all. These guys are this is basically the typical tier treatment for Mansoor Abdul-Malik. Listen, Mansoor Abdul-Malik, he's pretty good. He's physically gifted. You know, he is explosive. No pun intended for his name, but he's explosive. Kill power, athletic, but that's about it. His skill is not that good. He's not that good. Definitely not as good as Azamat Bekoev. You know, a lot of people were picking Azamat Bekoev on against Yusri. I remember. I was like one of the few people on YouTube picking Yusri to win against Azamat, but Yusri really stepped it up, especially because I feel like Yusri was training against Alex Pereira. You know, that was, they started training with each other. And I feel like that really helped Yusri win his fight against Azamat with the takedown defense and implementing the kickboxing style into MMA. So that really helped Yusri a lot. And I feel like this is probably going to help him a lot in this fight as well. Because Mansoor Abdul-Malik is not as good as Azamat. I don't think so. Like, even though he's undefeated against nobody. Like, he's one of those undefeated fighters that aren't undefeated because they are they're legit that good, like Ilya or Hamza. They're undefeated because they really haven't faced anybody that's really good yet. And I feel like Yusri, even though he has losses here and there, he stepped it up a lot since his last fight, and I do think he's gonna definitely make it really hard for Mansoor. Mansoor is not that good on the feet as well. He's a bit flat-footed, low output. Yusri can outpoint him with that jab, pick him apart. Listen, Mansoor Abdul-Malik, he has power. He can definitely like change the tides. Just land that one punch and boom, Aruji is like wobbled, kind of like similar in the Azamat fight. But he's not as good as Azamat, so it's kind of hard for me to see him doing that for sure. So I'm gonna go with Yusri Bagori winning by decision. I don't think he can finish Mansoor. Maybe he does. Maybe he can finish him the same way he finished Azamat. But I feel like Mansoor is gonna be a little bit more defensive in this fight. So give me Yusri Bagori decision. Next up, we got at featherweight. We got Julian Erosa versus Larian Douglas. Julian Erosa kind of fights very similar to Terrence McKinney as he gets into your face. He's 6'1", he's pretty big for featherweight, but he gets into your face, uses his size, his frame to pressure you up against the cage and try to take your head off. And it's been work for him, like here and there. He has a good amount of wins. It's just that kind of does leave him quite open in his fights, and he has been KO'd because of that, because he does leave himself quite open when he's pressuring his opponents. And even in some of his recent wins, he still got hit with pretty bad shots that he should be taking just because of his pressure, the way he fights. And so, Julian Erosa, his pressure, it's a real thing. It's just it does leave him in these like weird positions. And he's now fighting Larian Douglas, making his Contender Series debut. Larian Douglas has high KO power, so if he lands that one shot where Erosa does kind of leave himself open in these scenarios, he could get the win. And the thing is, I don't think Erosa's pressure is gonna be much for Douglas in this fight to begin with. And I still think he can be like in the middle of the storm type of situation where Erosa is pressuring Douglas, is calm, sees the opening and drops Erosa, and that's exactly what I see happening. So I'm gonna go with Larian Douglas winning his debut fight against Julian Erosa, probably second round KO. I feel like the first round can be kind of close, but I'm gonna go with Douglas getting the second round KO win against Erosa. So first round KO win, Douglas. Next up, we got a welterweight bout. We got two unks, Michael Chiesa versus Carlston Harris. Michael Chiesa in 2026 on a 3-fight winning streak, by the way. All by unks. You know, it was what, Tony Ferguson, Max Griffin, Core McGee, all old fighters in the UFC. But well, I think obviously Tony Ferguson is retired. But anyways, he's on a 3-5 winning streak, so it's not that bad. He's still, you know, you can say he's still got it over unks. You know, he's a crafty vet, crafty grappler. So he's still got it. He's not facing off with like this 38, another 38-year-old Carlson Harris. Not a UFC vet because he did get signed kind of late into the UFC, and so. But he also has a couple good wins here and there in the UFC. But he's up there in age, and he's mainly a grappler as well. But the thing is, I'm gonna lean towards Michael Chiesa being the better grappler than Carlson Harris, and out grappling him. I don't think Carlson Harris is gonna, you know, have the what's it called? What is up in my brain right now? The striking threat. Dude, my brain literally froze for a second. But anyways, I don't think he's gonna bring in the striking threat at all against Michael Chiesa. I feel like Michael Chiesa can do a good job grappling. And I feel like both of these guys are gonna want to grapple to begin with. But I'm gonna lean towards Michael Chiesa getting a second round submission, if not the first round submission. But giving Michael Chiesa winning this fight by submission and going to a 4-fight winning streak in 2026. So that'll be pretty crazy. But anyways, now for the co-main, the actual co-main, we got Alexa Grasso versus Macy Barber at my fight mate. This is a rematch. They fought years ago. You can kind of get. Let me start off by saying Alexa Grasso won, and you can kind of say she won because Alexa Grasso was like in her kind of entering her prime while Macy Barber was like really young in that fight, and so obviously Macy Barber lost. But anyways, they're now rematching. Alexa Grasso is not in like a 2-fight losing streak. She lost to the champ Shevchenko. And then after that, technically you could say 3-0 or no losing streak. You know, a lot of people do say the draw. She lost the draw. But anyway, she lost to Shevchenko, and now she lost to Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva could probably beat Shevchenko and become champ. So those two losses are not bad at all. It's just, and that Natalia Silva loss, she did look pretty out of it. Like, she legit did not look like she wanted to fight at all. Like, she looked like she had like other things in mind. You know, I don't know. She looked like she just came in for a paycheck. So. Not looking too great for Alexa Grasso. But anyways, she's now facing off with Macy Barber once again. Macy Barber is on a huge winning streak. She hasn't lost ever since the Alexa Grasso loss. So, huge winning streak. She's now in her prime as well. Kind of like the turning of the tables, you can kind of say. Macy Barber's in her prime, while Alexa Grasso, you can say she's, you know, aging out of her prime. Kind of, because even though she's like, what, like 30-something, she's still kind of young. Mentally, you can say also like fight-wise, you know, her fight age. She's like... exiting her prime, you could say. So I'm gonna lean towards Macy Barber. I don't know, this is a close one. You can say Alexa Grasso wins the rematch once again. I wouldn't argue against it. I'm gonna lean towards Macy Barber just because I feel like she's gonna be more mentally. She's gonna have the mental edge, as in she's coming into this fight with a huge winning streak. She wants to avenge her loss, her last loss years ago, and so I feel like she's gonna really wanna come into this fight well equipped to beat Alexa Grasso. Alexa Grasso, who legit looked like she didn't want to be in there against Natalia Silva, and is now like in a 2-fight losing streak, has like that mental barrier she gets to get passed by. So skill wise, I feel like it's kind of even. I feel like Macy Barber legit has improved a lot since her last fight as well. I mean, since her Alexa Grasso fight. So I'm gonna weigh Macy Barber just simply based off mental gymnastics, I guess you could say. But anyways, giving Macy Barber a decision. Now for the main event, we got Israel Adesanya versus Joe Pyfer. Ooh, have middleweight. This one's a good one. Now I'm gonna be genuinely honest. I feel like this fight is a little bit cursed for me because I feel like if I pick Izzy, Pyfer wins, and if I pick Pyfer, Izzy wins. But I don't know. I just can't get that feeling out of my head. Like, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, we're gonna march on. I'm gonna have to make my pick eventually, and so this is an interesting one. Like I said earlier, Izzy hasn't been active in a long time, over a year, and he's now 36 coming to this fight, and so it's gonna be kind of interesting to see. You know, a lot of people say, oh, the contender Izzy, you know, because Izzy, you know, obviously is not a champ anymore. Contender Izzy is a different animal. Oh no, he's a same beast but different animal, or was it the same animal different beast? Whatever he says, you know, Izzy, you know, is now in a 3-fight losing streak ever since he lost to Strickland. I don't know, but he still looks pretty decent. You can argue if he was in his prime or not against DDP, against Imava, but obviously right now, I don't know. It's kind of hard to argue if he's gonna be in his prime in this fight or if he looks horrible in this fight, because he has been slowing down for sure. His reaction time hasn't been looking that good, especially in the Imava fight. He legit was eating shots where he didn't even see them coming at all. Like in those fights, he ate like a couple shots where he stood still and he didn't even flinch at all. He legit was like in slow motion. I wouldn't be surprised if in the slow motion it was like going like this, like just like this, just like he legit just didn't see the fight like coming at all. And so that could be due to his reaction time. That could also be due to Imava just being really sneaky, being like the sniper, his nickname. But he legit was just not seeing these shots coming at all in that fight. Prime Izzy, you could easily say, oh yeah, he would move out of the way. He would see those coming and pick apart Imavov. He was winning the first round against Imavov. Obviously, he got chinned in the second round. Is Izzy? Oh, you could say he still got it technically. If not, he's better technical. His technique has improved. You could even say he hits even harder now than when he was in his champ era. He hits harder now, but it's just his speed, his physical, his physical advantages are waning now. He's not as fast as his footwork. His eyes aren't that good. His punching speed is not that quick. Legit, you could also compare him to his old fights. His speed in terms of his striking is actually slowed down a lot, actually, which is a little bit sad if you're an Izzy fan, but it's evident that he slowed down. And so I don't know. This one's a little bit tricky. I'm gonna be honest. And so now he's facing off with Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer, he's the same age as now when Izzy won the interim belt off Gastelum. He's now facing off with Izzy himself, former champ. A big step up in terms of fight for Pyfer. I mean, kind of, he did fight Gastelum, and Gastelum did give a pretty hard fight for Adesanya, but I would say that would be like a stylistic matchup rather than like skill. And so Joe Pyfer, this is a big step up for him in terms of skill. He hasn't fought anybody in terms of like the same stylistic like fighting as Adesanya. Adesanya probably fought similar opponents like Pyfer. Like I'm gonna be generally honest. You can kind of compare Joe Pyfer to like Marvin Vettori in terms of skill, because Marvin Vettori is not that good in terms of anything. He kind of is like slightly below average. It's just he has a really good chin. And I would say Joe Pyfer, his Marvin Vettori advantage, instead of having a really good chin, he has insane power, and so that's what's helping him win these fights. He's not that good. Dude, when you watch Joe Pyfer fight, he legit does this in his fights. He walks into range, and then he telegraphs the overhand. That's what he legit does, and he's winning these fights. So it just shows you that sometimes having power, sometimes hitting as hard as Ngannou. No, I'm joking. This guy dude does not hit as hard as Ngannou for sure. If you really think that, you're kind of dumb. But Ngannou would have accidentally slipped Hermanson into a coma. Just saying. So no, Joe Pyfer does not hit as hard as Ngannou. But anyways, his power does help him a lot in his fights. Speaking of the Hermanson fight, that one legit is still a stain in his career. That Hermanson fight, I feel like Joe Pyfer legit needs to become like a champ and like defend the belt like as many times as Anderson Silva to like get rid of that loss, because that loss is not looking too great for him. Because Hermanson was out of his prime. He was inactive. It was a 5-rounder. Also, that's also a thing, because this is a 5-rounder, of course. So if you can't get Israel Adesanya out of there in the 5 rounds, I mean in the first 3 rounds, ooh, it's not looking too good for Pyfer. Pyfer, in that Hermanson fight, his gas tank was depleted into the 3rd round. And Hermanson was just using fundamentals just to beat Pyfer. The jab, the cross, the grappling. He was grappling Pyfer in the 5th round. That could be said because Pyfer has had no gas tank at all. But still, if Izzy, who we've seen, he obviously has a really good cardio. If he survives those 2 or 3 rounds, yeah, it's not looking too good for Pyfer, because Hermanson obviously is nowhere near as good as Israel on the feet. You could say Adesanya has developed, even though he hasn't gotten a KO recently at all, he definitely has developed some KO power. I would say so, for sure. Definitely hits harder now. You could say because of age, the bone density has gotten bigger, or gotten denser. So, but anyways, Joe Pyfer, he's still pretty good. He's now on a 3-fight winning streak. He's now, this version of Joe Pyfer after losing to Hermanson definitely has improved. His skill, grappling, the hairline as well. He's gotten a new hairline. He has some good outings in terms of the grappling, the striking against Kevin Gastelum, Abus, even though Abus at times was out grappling Pyfer. Pyfer got the submission in the second round. Joe Pyfer definitely has improved, I would say, but he's just I would say he's not anything new Adesanya hasn't seen. You know, you can even compare him to Jan Blachowicz when Adesanya fought Jan, kind of similar style. I would even say Jan has better striking than Joe Pyfer, which is kind of crazy. A light heavyweight having better striking than a middleweight. It's just even though yes, Adesanya lost that fight, people say, oh, Adesanya is a fraud. He's not a good striker. He lost to Jan Blachowicz. That fight he didn't lose because he's a bad striker. Even though like he obviously I wouldn't agree that he's like a top 5 striker. I don't think he's that good. But he lost that fight because the weight difference. He weighed in like at 200 against Jan, and Jan obviously cut down to 205. So there was obviously like a 20 to 30 pound weight difference at fight night. So obviously Adesanya lost that fight. Even if you look at that fight, there was like a huge weight difference, like size difference between Adesanya and Jan. But anyways, obviously Israel is gonna be slightly bigger than Joe Pyfer, I guess you can say, and so he can pick apart Joe Pyfer for sure in this fight. Joe Pyfer, his footwork isn't amazing as well. Adesanya has fought way better fighters in general. You know, his last 3 fights, Imavov, DDP, Strickland are better strikers, better well-rounded fighters than Joe Pyfer. This is legit a big step down in competition from the Imavov loss. And so, and Imavov can still become champ. I'm pretty sure they're probably gonna do DDP versus Imavov for that fight, and then whoever wins that fight fights for the belt next. And Imavov can definitely beat DDP, just saying. So this is a big step down in competition for sure. This is literally just a fighter. He's just fighting a fighter that has KO power, and that's nothing new for Izzy. You know, he fought Alex Pereira, you know, someone who chinned Strickland before he fought Adesanya. So, you know, there's that. Stipe, he was able, I mean, not Stipe, I'm thinking of Jan. I keep confusing Stipe with Jan, but it was Jan. KO power as well. He wasn't able to chin Adesanya. Obviously recently he has been getting chinned, but by Strickland. My voice is going away. It's just, I don't know. Joe Pyfer has the skill to back it up with his power. You know, the footwork, the timing, the combinations, to hide the right hand, which he doesn't do. He literally just goes like this and then throws it. Watches fights. Izzy can for sure avoid everything Joe Pyfer has for Izzy, for sure, in my opinion. Now, obviously, there's MMA. Joe Pyfer has the wrestling. Now, I would say Joe Pyfer probably has better wrestling and takedowns than Imavov, because Izzy did a good job defending Imavov's takedowns. But I would say Joe Pyfer, I would say he's like, I don't know, he's probably like a DDP in terms of the grappling, in terms of like he's really strong, quick, explosive, really technical in terms, and good timing in terms of the takedowns. He landed a pretty good takedown on I forget his name, but he's some like short black dude, and on Abus, of course. He has some good grappling. It's just, I don't know if that's enough for Adesanya. Adesanya, you know, he was at the end of the day, he still did a really good job against Imavov, defended. And if not, he got a trip on Imavov, which is pretty impressive. Strickland didn't do much in the grappling. Adesanya, DDP was able to take down Adesanya a couple times. He did get the submission, but I don't think Joe Pyfer is like that. DDP is like legit huge and athletic. Joe Pyfer is somewhat athletic and not that big. You know, I don't know if he has the also, I don't know. He's like a technique specialist in the grappling as well. Like he does train with what's his name, Sean Brady, but I don't know if he's as good as Sean Brady. So I don't know, but I'm gonna lean towards Adesanya. I'm gonna be honest for this matchup. I feel like Adesanya has way more stuff that he can do against Pyfer than Pyfer can do for Adesanya. Pyfer really, if he wants to win, is take down Adesanya, open mat, take him down, and then land ground and pound. Because up against the cage, I feel like Adesanya does a really good job getting back up, and then on the feet, Joe Pyfer legit needs to exert himself to get the KO. You know, get past Adesanya, who's a really good distance manager. And then even then, he does do that. He leaves himself open to get countered by Adesanya. So I don't know. I'm going with Adesanya. I feel like he has way more stuff to win this fight than Joe Pyfer has in this matchup. This is a decent win for Adesanya, and then probably look forward to a rematch, because I feel like Adesanya is also going to be really motivated not to lose this fight at all. Because if he loses, hang up the gloves. So if he wins, Potentially, he could get to fight Strickland once again. If Strickland loses to Hamza, he gets to fight DDP. If DDP loses to Imavov, or he gets to fight Imavov once again. If Imavov loses to DDP, there's a lot of rematches for Izzy Adesanya to get a get back with one of the losses he's been receiving recently. So I feel like Izzy is gonna be really motivated. Of course, Joe Piper's gonna be motivated as well because there's a big step up for him. He gets a win over the number 4 former champ. It skyrockets him to a title contention fight. Like a number 1 title contender fight. So there's obviously Joe Piper's gonna be very motivated, but I'm gonna lean towards Israel Adesanya win this fight. Maybe by the decision, maybe. But I could also see Izzy KOing Joe Pyfer in the later rounds. A gas Joe Pyfer, someone who we've seen him not do good at all against Hermanson. And also he couldn't even chin Hermanson, But there's that. So yeah, give me Israel Adesanya decision win against Joe Pyfer for this main event. And yeah, those are all my picks for this main event. And those are all. If you think differently, let me know. If you got anybody else, let me know in the comment section below. I like to read your comments. And if you come this far, like and subscribe. And thank you guys for watching. And goodbye.